Former President Donald Trump's approach to trade has always been a point of controversy, with his America First policies leading to significant changes in U.S. trade relations. But now, as Trump gears up for a potential return to the White House, his tariff proposals could reignite a devastating trade war that will likely push U.S. prices to unbearable levels. Just yesterday, Trump took to Truth Social, declaring his intention to impose a 25% tariff on all goods imported from Mexico and Canada, a move he says will be part of his first executive orders. This proposal, which Trump believes will solve the issue of illegal immigration and the fentanyl crisis, shows a complete disregard for the economic consequences of such an aggressive strategy. While Trump insists that these tariffs are necessary to protect the U.S. from invasion, a thinly veiled reference to his ongoing narrative on immigration, his plan has already drawn the ire of both Mexico and Canada. Both countries are not only the U.S.'s top trading partners, but also hold critical leverage in areas like energy supply and food imports. This video will explore the ramifications of Trump's proposed tariffs, examining how they could harm American consumers, strain relationships with key allies, and potentially lead to a trade war with disastrous economic consequences. 1. Trump's dangerous tariff proposal, a recipe for economic destruction. On January 20th, the first day of a potential second Trump presidency, the former president has stated that one of his many executive orders would be to impose a 25% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. from Mexico and Canada. This move is particularly bold, considering both countries are vital to the U.S. economy. For Trump, the tariffs are a response to what he views as an invasion of illegal immigrants and drugs, especially fentanyl, from both nations. However, this simplistic view of trade relations ignores the broader economic impact that such tariffs would have on everyday Americans. Trump's stance is clear. He believes that the United States must force Mexico and Canada to take action on issues that Trump considers critical, such as illegal immigration and drug trafficking. But trade relations are complex, and tariffs are not the silver bullet Trump believes them to be. Rather than bringing about the desired changes in immigration policy, these tariffs would only serve to drive up prices for American consumers. The reality is that tariffs are taxes on imports, which means that the cost burden will fall squarely on American consumers. For example, food prices, especially for vegetables, could soar. According to recent data, a significant portion of the U.S.'s vegetable imports come from Mexico, 15 billion pounds of produce annually. If tariffs are imposed, the price of these vegetables will increase, directly impacting the wallets of American families. The same goes for other key products that come from Mexico and Canada, including machinery, electronics, cars, and agricultural products like grains and soybeans. 2. The backlash from Mexico and Canada, economic leverage on full display. It didn't take long for both Mexico and Canada to respond to Trump's tariff threat. The Mexican government, led by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, wasted no time in suggesting that Mexico could retaliate by imposing its own tariffs on U.S. goods. This warning sent shockwaves through industries that depend heavily on trade with Mexico, such as the agricultural and manufacturing sectors. If Mexico follows through with this threat, the cost of U.S. exports to Mexico could skyrocket, causing ripple effects across the American economy. But Mexico's leverage is not the only concern. Canada, a key trading partner, also holds significant economic power. In fact, Canada buys more goods from the United States than China, Japan, France, and the United Kingdom combined. It also plays a vital role in supplying energy to the U.S. In 2023, 60% of U.S. crude oil imports came from Canada, making it a critical player in U.S. energy supply. Should the U.S. engage in a trade war with Canada, the consequences could be catastrophic for the U.S. energy sector. Rising oil prices would increase costs for consumers, further fueling inflation. Beyond energy, Canada also plays a major role in U.S. manufacturing. Products such as automobiles, machinery, and pharmaceuticals are commonly imported from Canada. A tariff battle could disrupt these vital supply chains, pushing up the prices of everything from cars to prescription drugs. Canada's Deputy Prime Minister has already warned that any tariffs imposed on Canadian goods could have long-lasting effects on U.S.-Canada relations, making clear that Canada is prepared to retaliate. 3. The impact on U.S. consumers, the silent victims of Trump's trade war. If Trump's tariff plan were to move forward, it would undoubtedly affect nearly every aspect of life in the United States. From food to fuel, the ripple effects of a trade war would be widespread, with American consumers bearing the brunt of the economic burden. As stated earlier, tariffs are essentially taxes on imported goods, and those taxes are passed on to the consumer. In the case of tariffs on Mexico and Canada, this would result in higher prices for products that Americans rely on every day. For instance, the construction industry, which relies heavily on imports from Canada, such as lumber, cement, and other materials, would see a significant increase in costs. As a result, housing prices could rise even further, exacerbating the already dire situation in the U.S. housing market. Additionally, the automobile industry, which depends on cross-border supply chains, would face higher production costs. The U.S. auto industry is already grappling with supply chain disruptions, and Trump's tariffs could make matters worse by raising the cost of car parts and electronics. But it's not just goods that would be impacted. Trump's trade war could result in higher energy prices as well. A reduction in oil imports from Canada, coupled with the retaliation from Mexico, would likely lead to higher fuel prices, which would then push up the cost of goods and services across the board. This would be devastating for American consumers, many of whom are already struggling with inflation. 4. The dangerous precedent of Trump's trade wars, a history of self-inflicted pain. Trump's proposed tariff plan is not without precedent. In 2018, the Trump administration initiated a trade war with China, imposing tariffs on over $360 billion worth of Chinese goods. The result was a significant increase in prices for everyday products like electronics, clothing, and household goods. According to the Tax Foundation, the tariffs on Chinese imports amounted to nearly $80 billion in new taxes on U.S. consumers. American farmers were also hit hard, as China retaliated by slapping tariffs on U.S. agricultural products like soybeans, corn, and pork. The fallout from the trade war with China was felt across the country. As U.S. farmers struggled to recoup their losses, the government had to step in with emergency aid. However, the aid did little to offset the long-term damage caused by the tariffs. The U.S. agricultural sector took a massive hit, and many farmers were forced to make difficult decisions about whether they could continue operating their businesses. Trump's actions in 2018 serve as a clear warning about the dangers of trade wars. Despite his promises to help American workers, his tariffs ended up hurting many of the very people he claimed to support. The same fate could await U.S. consumers if Trump proceeds with his plan to impose tariffs on Mexico and Canada. In conclusion, Trump's tariff proposal is a classic example of his disregard for the economic realities of global trade. While he may believe that attacking Mexico and Canada will solve the U.S.'s immigration and drug problems, the truth is that tariffs are a blunt instrument that only hurt consumers. Both Mexico and Canada have the economic leverage to retaliate, and the resulting trade war could drive up prices across the board, harming American families and businesses alike. The lesson from Trump's previous trade wars with China is clear. There are no winners in a trade war. The cost of these conflicts is borne by consumers, who end up paying higher prices for goods and services. Diplomacy, rather than economic aggression, is the better solution to resolving trade disputes. The U.S. economy is deeply interconnected with Mexico and Canada, and alienating these crucial allies will only harm the American people. As Trump continues to push forward with his plans, it's important for voters and policymakers alike to recognize the dangers of such aggressive economic policies. The time for cooperation and thoughtful negotiation is now, before the U.S. is dragged into yet another trade war that could have devastating consequences for all.